I'd like to start by getting us all on the same page with a common definition of stress, which was most often defined in the following way. Stress is the experience that happens when the demands in front of us outweigh the resources or reserves we have at our disposal. From an evolutionary perspective, stress is considered the body's innate capacity to self-preserve by staving off harm. During stress, the body activates branches of the autonomic nervous system, primarily the sympathetic nervous system, often referred to as the fight or flight system. But in some cases, where freezing is the most promising way to stay alive, stress can also dynamically activate the parasympathetic nervous system. When we encounter threat or danger, the body responds with stress to help us avoid, escape from, or fight off harm. Sounds sensible so far, right? Let's delve a little deeper into the biology of stress. A sympathetic nervous system stress response activates the hypothalamic pituitary axis, a sort of hub or portal between the brain and the circulatory system that supports hormonal influence on our experiences and behaviors. During stress, the HPA axis releases stress hormones like adrenaline, cortisol, and norepinephrine, which raise your heart rate and blood pressure, redirect blood flow towards the big muscles and away from non-essential organs and the gastrointestinal tract. It makes blood clot more easily and increases blood sugar. All of this putting us in a better position to survive. The HPA stress response also puts the immune system into higher gear, ready to fight off infection with inflammation in case there's tissue damage. Acute stress also shifts the way we perceive and process information in our brains. Neural resources are directed towards processing threat. Sensation, perception, information processing, and memory are biased towards self-preservation, preparing for motor action, and taking a global, spatially oriented perspective on things. Under stress, we often miss the finer details that are probably not essential to escaping from the saber-toothed tiger, but are usually important to getting things right at work. The stress response also makes our sweat smellier. While scientists don't have a systematic explanation for this, studies have shown that people in an audience are more skeptical about the content of presentations by speakers who smell stress sweaty. Maybe stinky stress sweat is meant to repel rivals? So how does stress, which seems so helpful for surviving real threats, turn into something that is so problematic to human health and well-being? Most scientists think it comes down to a mismatch between the kinds of challenges and threats that we encounter today in our contemporary work lives and the kinds of threats and challenges that our bodies evolved to help us handle. Most of us are not hiding from pythons or sprinting away from predators during our day-to-day work. We can thank our stress response for helping us dart out of the path of an oncoming car, but take note, that stress response comes on quick and subsides soon after we know we're safe. In contrast, today's chronic stress is not typically about an immediate physical threat. It's often about something that has already happened, something coming up in the future, or about an outcome that has implications for our reputation or social status, not life or death. Stanford professor Robert Sapolsky wrote about this in his 1994 book, Why Zebras Don't Get Ulcers, and again in his recent book, Behave. Today's chronic stress response often endures over the course of weeks, months, and years. And because the body still gets the same turn on stress command, the body ends up in a state of what's called sympathetic overdrive. This means that the sympathetic nervous system stays steadily activated, pulsing an enduring presence of stress hormones into the bloodstream, which keeps blood pressure high, builds up atherosclerotic plaques in blood vessels, and puts people at greater risk of cardiovascular disease. Over time, chronic stress weakens the immune response, increasing our risk of infection and disease, and has even been shown to make cancer spread faster. Chronic stress is also associated with ulcers, loss of sleep, premature cellular aging, diabetes, obesity, and other significant health problems. Modern-day chronic stress also strains social relationships, decreasing closeness and satisfaction of long-term bonds. Chronic stress causes memory loss and impairs intellectual function, and has even been tied to cell death in the hippocampus, the brain structure that's most important for encoding memories. Finally, at a subjective level, chronic stress is unpleasant. It interferes with happiness in life and puts us at risk for psychological disorders. So how do we reconcile that remarkable stress response that helps us survive with the pervasive chronic stress that seems to be killing us? In thinking about stress, particularly in the context of work, I think it's important to remember that some stress is inevitable and okay. We spend upwards of 50% of our waking hours doing things that have consequences, are time sensitive, and can be wrong, dislike, or epically fail. Getting fired can lead to dire consequences. The point is not to demonize or try to eliminate stress from work altogether, just because we're not typically fighting off predators around the water cooler. Here, we hope to share insights and practical steps to developing a healthy relationship with stress at work, leveraging the fact that while the body does have the stress system we just talked about, the body also has systems for undoing and recovering from stress. And interestingly, these systems are sensitive to social input. The body has resilience. And just like we can stretch stress out into a chronic problem, we can also strengthen skills of resilience to get better at undoing our stress in a timely and constructive fashion at work.